C10 Talk, episode 180. Mr. George Trosley, a.k.a. Troz, our favorite automotive cartoonist and street trucks comic. Here we go.
You know, you sit in a room by yourself doing these drawings. You never hear the laughter. You hope you know where it's going to go. But you're not like a comic that goes out on stage and can tell which jokes worked and which ones didn't right away. It gets printed and goes out, and some guy in Albuquerque laughs at it. I don't hear him. It's a strange thing to do that and not be able to, like I said, like a comic can see what works and what doesn't, and the next time he alters his routine, it's too late. It's already printed. So it's been a strange thing to do something and have it be so popular, and I'm really thrilled about that.
Damn, son.
Let me tell you what Melvin Toast is packing right here. I've got 411 posi track out back, 750 double pumper, Edelbrock intakes, scored over 30, 11-1 pop-up pistons, turbojet, 390 horsepower. We're talking some fucking muscle.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast.
And now I have a chance to be the best, maybe the best in the world.
My old man, he's a television repairman. Got the ultimate set of tools. I can fix it.
I said I got 50 cents in that jukebox, and all I can hear is your mouth flapping. You hear that?
Here's your host, Ronnie Welch.
All right. What up, C10 Nation? Hope everybody's doing good out there. I can tell you, I just got my butt kicked by a 13-year-old in Mario Kart. So I definitely need to work on my driving skills. I need to get the slice out and tear up the pavement. Hopefully that's coming soon. I know we've got some shows slated for June, July, August. So let's see what happens. Hopefully everybody's getting ramped up. I know here locally, the food, the restaurants, things like that are starting to loosen up. So hopefully everybody's doing good out there. Hopefully you're digging the content. Just had another builder series. Myself did last Friday. Obviously before that we had AZ High Test, Arizona High Test, Jason Berland. And that one is going very well. I've talked to Jason numerous times, and he's blown away. Obviously, the response has been great for not only you guys checking the show out, listening to the pod, but making some calls, and his orders, he said, are up. So that's a good thing. So if you haven't had the time to check out episode 179, either on the pod or you can jump on YouTube and check out the video and the shop tour we did with Jason. AZ High Test, Jason Berland. Check it out if you guys like chassis stuff, if you like plumbing. Really very clean. Not only that, but the resources that he gives you and the tech, it's on there. Episode 179. This was a fun one, 180 with George. I have been following George and checking out cartoons, checking out Crass and Bernie, checking out the comic in the back of Street Trucks. You guys have seen me kind of post up some of them for the Friday Funny. And I was like, what the hell? I'll reach out to him, see what he says. And he was like, whatever you need, let me know. Let's do it. And you'll hear it in the pod that he's an automotive icon, and he's also just an amazing enthusiast, and that's really what it comes down to. So Mr. George Trosley is going to be coming at you here. I want to make sure I pass on a few things to you guys, make sure if you need any kind of contact, and I will put it in the show notes. His email is going to be trosley at AOL, TROSLEY at AOL. Yep, at AOL.com. His webpage is George, common spelling, Trosley, TROSLEY.com. Check that out. He's got everything on there. And his Instagram is at George Trosley. Now, if you want, let's say maybe a comic of your truck, your car, a gift for somebody, a graduation present, whatever it might be, he does do some kind of comic / renderings. So let me read the email that he sent over to me. Truck car portraits start at $199 plus shipping. Backgrounds and additional trucks, cars are $75. Trucks can be standing still or up and running. No change to put the owner in the driver's seat. Other options are available on my website, which again is georgetrosley.com. I'll put your truck on a cartoon cover, make it a monster truck. I can feature your truck in a how to draw page. So he can do a little bit of everything. Whatever you want, he can do it. Check out his website and you'll enjoy it. If you've never heard of George, You don't get street trucks. You haven't seen the comic in the back. Every month, he's got a one-page comic that pretty much nails not only you, the listener, but me, and I laugh every time. So you can check it out online, again, at his website, and enjoy it because he's such an enthusiast, and it really shows. I don't know if you can get my website. So, yeah, I got the website out there, so we're good to go. Thank you again so much, George, for your time. Gracious guest. And it sounds like his wife helps him out a lot from the interview. You'll hear that. So another thing to get out is our buddy Jeremy Colcart D10. He is kind of organizing a Memorial Day Freedom Cruise. Now, I was talking to somebody else, and they're like, well, nobody's going to go all the way up there. That's not what it is. So get on over to Jeremy, which is going to be Colcart D10. And all he's saying is if your club, whatever it is, wherever you're at, get out and drive on Memorial Day. Kind of an hashtag freedom cruise, just Memorial Day, freedom cruise. Let's get back after it. So that's Jeremy Colcart D10. So Memorial Day, freedom cruise. So if you're not doing anything, see about getting your buddies together in your local C10 club, your local cruise, your local whatever, and get out and do a little freedom cruise and have fun doing it. And hashtag take a picture, post it up, have fun, and hashtag freedom cruise. Let's see what else I got here. OBS Talk is out with Arnie Gonzalez, Tricky Air Suspension. Rad dude and a lot of fun. It's about 2 hours. I think I was kind of joking. I really probably only asked him 3 questions, and it's a 2-hour podcast. Meaning Arnie can talk and I can talk. So between the two of us, a lot going on there. OBS Talk, check it out. Episode 14 with Arnie Gonzalez. So for you guys over here, we had Berland, and then we had Fuelish Media, which is Kevin Aguilar. Those are some of the back episodes, and then myself. So check those out. Let's jump on over to some reviews and get you guys out of here. Let's see where I left off last. Favorite podcast, 5 stars by Damien14. Great podcast. Keeps me informed on the scene because I'm busy and can get a lot of good info here while working late at night. Thanks, Ronnie, for linking us all together and combining all the good bites into an easy to listen to format. Keep it up, Mike S. And again, that's Damien14, but he's saying it's Mike S. It's 5 stars. Thank you, brother. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for taking the time.
5 star. Perfect. Thank you.
Cool show, 5 stars by Dean Legler. The show is a must. It gives me a great amount of inspiration to get out and work on my 72 short bed. Awesome show. Thanks, Ronnie.
5 star. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, for doing that. One more here. Awesome, 5 stars by Abigail2128. Keep it up, Ronnie. Great show. Tons of information. Really brings the C10 community together. Support those that support you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Abigail2128. Thank you for the 5-star review.
5 star. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Another thing I've been meaning to tell you guys, I don't watch that much TV. So if I come across something that's good and I want to share it with you, it's probably pretty good. At least it's not going to waste your time. So Beastie Boys, The Story on Apple TV, which sucks because it's on Apple TV. I don't know when they're going to drop that on something else where you can just buy it. It's worth it. If you like Beastie Boys, if you grew up in the 80s or 90s and you rocked out to those boys, dude, it's very well done. It is it's a stage style performance where 2 hours, but it's narrated by Mike D and Ad Rock. So they do such a good job of the way that they put it together, and they narrate it and kind of talk about the stories and then show some of the pictures and go through it. So Beastie Boys, The Story, highly recommend that. And another one, if you're a sports guy, is The Last Dance, about the Bulls and Jordan. It is it's very well done documentary. They do a good job. If you grew up in that same time period, basketball was amazing back then. I'm not even a basketball fan at all, especially not now. But back then, just those late 80s and those 90s, when you think about the Celtics and the Lakers and some of the series they had going on, obviously anything with Jordan, anything with the Bulls. And one of the things about the story that I'll give just a little bit away is that Jordan did not even want to go to the meeting with Nike. Nike wanted him. He wouldn't have it. He wanted to go to Adidas. Adidas was like, well, we right now we're not bringing on any NBA contracts or whatever shoes. And Converse had the majority of the NBA players, obviously Bird and Magic, and the list goes on. So Nike wanted to get Jordan. Jordan didn't want to go. His mama says, you're going. And they gave him, I think, $250,000 as a rookie. And he might have been right at the end of his rookie year or something like that. But $250,000. And if you think about that, not really the money, but it changed our world. I mean, you think about Jordan's the shoes, Jordan's the culture, Jordan's the clothing, everything. And mama, she's like, you're going. And good move for Nike, good move for Jordan. So Last Dance, that's on ESPN, and the Beastie Boys story, Apple TV. That's my recommendations for quarantine watching as of now. That's about all I have. I hope you guys have a great Memorial Day, and you get out and you get to cruise. #Freedom Cruise. Just get your trucks out, get ready. Hopefully we're going to get some fun payment time here pretty soon. If you need any gear, C10 Nation and C10 Talk, OBS as well. We've got it all at c10nation.com. You've got your hats, your shirts, your stickers, pretty much everything you're going to need. Banners. We got it all. We've got a few things on back order, a couple hats, some keychains, but for the most part, everything's in stock. So if you need it, C10 Nation, C10 Talk, and OBS Talk. What's the old saying? If you need it, we got it. If we ain't got it, you don't need it. Something like that. All right, guys, thanks for taking the time to leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing out there. Happy Memorial Day. Stay safe. Have fun. And thanks for tuning into the pod. Late. Hey guys, I have Rick Vintage Air. How's it going, Rick?
Going great, Ronnie. Good to hear from you.
Thank you for coming on. Springtime, we got to get ready. Vintage Air's got what we need for our C10 trucks.
That's the truth. We tend to forget in the wintertime that warm weather is going to be here again. It comes every year, and when we're kind of doing the maintenance on our trucks and thinking about what we're going to do for next year, it's kind of one of these things. You're not thinking about air conditioning when it's cold outside, but it's going to be warm pretty quick.
Well, and really, Vintage Air has a sure fit kit for the C10 Nation.
We do. We have coverage. I mean, they weren't called C10s back then, but, we have a sure fit kit for every Chevy pickup from 1948 right up through 87.
Well, and the other thing is even if somebody wants to kind of add something or they didn't have AC, you have everything to kind of help them along the way.
That's correct. These SureFit kits, they're designed for either a non-air pickup or a factory air pickup. So the kits are a little different depending on what the original equipment was on your cab. But we've got the parts necessary to change that truck over to an air-conditioned vehicle no matter what it came from, the factory.
If you need a template for your dash, if it's under dash, they have everything to make the job easy and the install really a weekend-style job.
It is, and the great thing about SureFit Kit is it's a bolt-in system. And like you mentioned, a template, like on the 67 to 72, our non-AC kit includes a reproduction of the center vent for the factory air. So we give you a template to cut the dash and install that factory air vent, and then we also give you a template to install a round vent in the corner of each dash. Similar to the factory air, you want to put the factory air style vents. We have those available as well with a template to cut your dash for them. So you have some options, but when you buy one of our SureFit kits, it's going to have everything you need to make that transition.
What about the gains you get when you're switching out from an old school system? So somebody had AC, but they're going to get a smooth firewall, they're going to get a new modern ventilation system, and they're going to get a compressor that draws a lot less horsepower from their motor.
You're exactly right. Those are some of the biggest benefits. Those original A6 compressors that they had back then, they were basically an 8 to 10 horsepower compressors, what they took to drive them. The new Sandins that we include with our kits, they're a 3 to 5 horsepower power loss. So, I mean, that's basically half is what you're looking at. And, even if your truck was factory air, you're looking at 50-year-old technology at this point. They were vacuum operated to change the doors, or they were cable operated. Our new systems are electronically controlled like a late model vehicle is. They're set up for 134A refrigerant, designed to operate with that modern refrigerant. So you've got new technology that bolts in to replace that old technology, and you get better performance. You get better airflow, more airflow, along with advanced technology.
The cool thing along the way is that Vintage Air has created a control panel that's going to fit into your stock positioning. So you really don't have to change much up. They're giving you the modern control panel. Obviously, the 67 to 72, you've got the new Billet control panel. So you have a lot of options for the end user to really upgrade not only their AC system, but the way that it appears in their cab.
You know, you're exactly right with that. I mean, we try to make it so that whatever theme you're going with your truck, we've got a way to make our system blend right in with that. If you want your truck to basically look original on the dash, or for like a 67 to 72, our standard kit includes the parts to convert your factory control panel to electronic operation. So you retain your factory control panel, either a non-AC or a factory AC, and that factory control panel will now control our system. If you want to upgrade to a newer look, we've got the Billet control panel that you just mentioned in either black or the machined finish with a black face. It mimics the look of the original system, but it's LED backlit. You know, kind of modernizes the look a little bit. But if you want to stick with that original look, you can. We've also got some other type of controls, optional controls that are aluminum polished or black anodized. If you're customizing the dash, we've got a lot of louver options available. We've got some billet balls that fit in the louver, the factory air louvers. And so we've got all kinds of options that allow you to customize your truck and make it flow with the rest of the way your dash is looking.
If you guys want the look, inside, outside, the reliability, the track record, vintageair.com, made in America, US of A, right in Texas. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Ronnie. Good to talk to you.
Hey, guys, special guest on this one. I'm super excited. Mr. George Trosley, a.k.a. Troz. If you've been a subscriber to Street Trucks Magazine, always in the back, always consistent, a good laugh. Troz, thanks for coming on C10 Talk.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here. Thanks for picking me for this.
Yeah, this is such a fun thing. This is one of the funnest things about doing this radio show podcast is I get to reach out to people who, you know, maybe you don't realize it, but you are making a lot of people laugh and you're giving us so much enjoyment in something that you obviously love and are entrenched as an enthusiast, and you've made a living out of doing something that is something that you love, cars, automotive.
Yeah, I'm. As I look back on my life, I'm surprised I was able to do that. It was my dream at 10 years old.
Take us back. How did you get into cars? What's the story?
Well, I always drew when I was a kid. My father and his brothers always drew and painted, so that it was sort of in our family. But around 9, 10 years old, I discovered cars. So from that point on, I was drawing cars.
Was your dad into cars as much? I mean, if they were into drawing, but to go to that level and then to think, well, now I want to make this my profession.
No, my father actually didn't work he worked in industry because he grew up in the Depression. And, you know, we did well. We were upper middle class, I guess you'd say. But around me was small neighborhood guys getting a hold of a 49 Ford, nosing and decking it, lowering it, messing with the mufflers, even if it was with a hammer and a nail, you know, if you couldn't afford glass packs. And we would ride our bikes behind these guys just trying to, you know, wreak some of the cool from them. It just seemed so cool in the 50s to see these hot rods and customs around. There were Model A's, Deuce Coupes, rolling up and down McDade Boulevard, which was our main drag. So when I finally became 16 and got a car, I got to be part of that, which was a thrill.
So where are you at?
Maine.
Let's tell the audience you're back east.
Yeah, I'm just outside of Pennsylvania in a small town called Ridley Park. Okay,
and you grew up out there?
Yes, I grew up in the town next to it called Woodland, but it's all sort of the same area now. And a lot of my friends are still here. I have a lot of hot rod buddies that are still here.
I've interviewed a guy.
Move away.
Sorry about that. I've interviewed a guy, Mark Giambavo from New Jersey, and I think he's out there in Woodland. What would be the odds? I'm going to find out. He's an amazing.
Well, you know, there's a Woodland, New Jersey, and the place I'm talking about is Woodlyn, Lyn. So there is a Woodland, New Jersey.
Well, he's in PA.
He might be there.
He's in PA.
Oh.
Yeah, he moved. He moved. He's a younger guy. He takes it's a high-end builder. So I'll find out. I digress.
Great.
It doesn't take me
cool.
much to get off track. So So you grew up in the heyday. I mean, really, if you think about it from automotive culture, American graffiti style, hot rodding.
Exactly.
You grew up in it.
A friend of mine ran into my wife and I one night, and he said, "You're not doing anything but coming with me." And he had just seen American Graffiti. I really didn't know that much about it. And he took us to that movie, and he just kept looking at me because that was our lives. You know, all the songs that were playing in the background, we all hung out at a hamburger place and cruised up and down the street, and cops chasing other cars. It was all that typical stuff from the 50s and 60s. Very lucky to grow up then.
Yeah,
magical.
What kind of memories do you have? Do you have culture memories? Do you have automotive specific, like a car? I mean, because it shows in your work, really.
Yeah, a lot of us had cars, and that's all we could afford. So working on them, you know, we had to help each other. I had a friend. I had a '39 Ford two-door sedan. I had a friend that had a '40, and if one of us broke down, we would take the part off the other car and see if it was a solenoid. So if we put my solenoid on his car and it started, then we went and bought a solenoid. That's how we fixed cars, the replace technique.
Yeah, good friends, right?
Yeah, we all helped each other because we needed each other.
Yeah, you're like, don't hang out with Mark, though, because he always has a piece of crap and you'll end up taking all your parts.
Yeah, and working all night for him.
Do you still?
Yeah, they were good times.
Do you still hang out with? If you look back over, you know, your automotive kind of the passion and your friends, did you keep those same automotive friends throughout?
Some of them I do, and I still have as friends, but many of them moved on, moved away. You know, took a job somewhere else. Maybe they have a street rod or something now, but they're not near me. I hear from somebody once in a while who pick up a car magazine and said, "Was that your stuff I saw in there?" Yes.
Yep, that's me. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. You were always doing that. You know, I used to get caught in class drawing. A lot of my early digest-sized car magazines have holes punched in them. So I know I ruined them by punching the holes in them, and I often had to use a nail because the punch wouldn't go through. But then I could put them in my loose leaf notebook, and in class, when we're studying the imports and exports of Brazil, I'm seeing what George Barris did to a 51 Chevy in the back of the class.
You were addicted early. It got you.
I really was. I really was. And I loved the magazines. I grew up with the Barris Roth stuff, and he was always coming out. I actually saw Roth at a car show in Philadelphia, and I went with my brother and a buddy. And after we walked around, I just sat and watched Roth. And he would clean his airbrush on my face. You blow a little bit of air out, and you lean over and in my face, and then go back and do another. I was loving it. Oh my God! And my brother and my buddy would show up and say, "Come on, you're going to sit here all day?" Yes. And the following year, Mouse was there. If you remember Mouse shirts, and
like Rat Funk. Guys.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of what Roth was doing, and he was East Coast. And I saved my money, bought an airbrush, and you could bring me your T-shirt, and I'd spray anything you want on it for like 50 cents.
You were killing it back then. You were killing it. You had so much money.
My little Binks airbrush, yes. Actually, what happened one night right before school, this kid I didn't know brought me a windbreaker, a brand new jacket. And there was a mouse design with an eyeball on a fork. And it said, "Pass the mustard." Okay? He said, "I want Pass the Mustard on my jacket." So I put Pass the Mustard on his jacket. That night, about 10:30, 11 o'clock, our doorbell rings. It's that kid's mother. That was his go-back-to-school jacket. And she just looked at it, and it had this eyeball on a fork with Pass the Mustard spray painted on it. He said, "I did it." And so she came to my house that I was going to have to pay for his jacket. So my mother called me, and I said, "He paid me 50 cents to put that on there." And the mother turns around, and apparently the kid's in the dark. And she said, "Did you pay him 50 cents to do this?" And you hear him go, "Yes." And she goes, "I'm sorry," and smacks him down our steps, smacks him down the street. Pass the mustard.
Yeah. Passed the he got more than the mustard on that deal.
Yeah, and I guess maybe he had to wear it. I don't know, which he would probably been pleased about because he wanted it on there. But yeah, they were fun times. Very interesting times in the hot rod world as well. A lot of things were changing. A lot of shows were happening. A lot of glitter.
Did you self-train? Did you, to get so good?
Well, I used to be a loyal follower of Pete Millar, who started cartoons, and then Peterson sort of took it over on him, and so he left them and did the same thing except called it Drag Tunes. And I was a big fan of his. In fact, this is going to sound crazy, but on our honeymoon, my wife and I flew to Southern California, and the next day when we woke up, the first thing we did was call him and go to his house, and he didn't have a clue who the hell I was. Even though we had been writing him letters and sending him drawings, I was like a major fan of his. Anyway, he invited us to stay for dinner, and halfway through dinner, he pushes himself back from the table. He goes, "I know who you are now. You're that kid who kept sending me drawings and letters." I said, "Yeah, that's me." He invited a stranger and his wife to stay for dinner. Then he knew who I was, and I took some pictures with him, and we were friends up until he passed away a few years ago. A friend of mine who we used to go to car shows in the beginning of summer and the end of summer. I've known him since first grade. Without a doubt, in some portion of us being together that day, he'll say to me, "Remember when we were kids, some kids wanted to grow up and be Mickey Mantle, other guys wanted to grow up and be John Wayne. You always wanted to grow up and be Pete Millar." And we'd have a good laugh out of that. And I'm very friendly with his widow, and I've told her that story, and she loves it. that I wanted to grow up to be her husband.
Yeah. How cool to think that. I'm sure you reflect on it. It sounds like you do. You got to do what you wanted to do. Some people are just miserable in their jobs.
Yeah. Well, actually, I went to 4-year art school, commercial art, and I got a job in various art studios, and ended up working at one of the second largest art studios in Philadelphia. We did a lot of the work when Atlantic Richfield changed to Arco, if you remember that. And I did a lot of the illustrations that were on the pumps and the signs, and I sort of had made it as a young kid in commercial art, and I hated it. It ate you up. You work 7 days a week, night and day. I used to take a train in and out of the city, and as the night went on, the trains were fewer, like an hour in between, an hour and a half in between. If I didn't catch the 10:10, the next train was the 11:50. Right? Jeez. So you're getting home 1:30 and then going back into the city at 7. It was insanity. And I walked away from that. I sold Pappy Lemons at Hot Rod Cartoons, 2 pages, $75 a piece. And I was making a lot of money then. On the strength of that, I quit that big-time Center City art studio job and went out on my own to draw cartoons for Hot Rod Cartoons. I started to work for. Dennis Ellison got in touch with me. He had Cycle Tunes, and I started working for them and got started. And, I was making money in cartooning. I wasn't making what I made, but I was much happier. I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day when I worked in the city, and without trying, just with the lack of pressure, I went to 1 pack. I haven't smoked in like 40 years, but back then I was a pretty heavy smoker. But without even trying, like I said, I was having such a great time in my life once I left that Center City stuff that I quit smoking and started really enjoying my life, going to a lot of car shows, sleeping once in a while.
Getting paid to go to car shows, really, from a content perspective, and
that's true.
Yeah,
we were always writing ideas as we were there, my wife and I. She writes a lot of the stuff with me. I'll show her an idea, and we're to a point where we don't even laugh at it if it's funny. We go, "Hey, that's funny," It's more like science to us. But she'll always change one little thing to make my drawing or my cartoon so much funnier, so much better, and then I'll sign my name and take full credit for it.
Nice. Way to go, buddy. Hey, we know behind every great guy, there's a phenomenal woman standing there.
She's the one.
It sounds like... Now, how long have you been married? Oh boy, you better get this.
45 years, I guess. We got married at Thanksgiving, right around Thanksgiving. So we were only married a month, and then it was the following year.
Mm-hmm.
So do we count that month as a whole year? Or,
you better.
So I'm always confused of how long. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And we will always be married, I'm sure.
Sounds like it's been. The cool thing about that is it sounds like you figured it out, the formula. She gets to, she probably at the time, my wife as well. I've been married. I'm almost the same. I got married at the end of the year, but I've been married just over 20 years. And she's artistic, so she's been creative, and she puts up with my craziness as well. But it's cool that your wife now maybe wasn't a car girl or a car gal, but now she knows. She's entrenched in this. She's entrenched by marriage. Yeah. She's entrenched by her love for you, and now she gets it. I mean, because your stuff is the stuff for me, and again for my audience, I almost don't know if I said it, specifically at the beginning, and I apologize, but cartoons is where I grew up kind of knowing who you were as a young kid. And then now, street trucks in the back of every magazine. There's a Troz, comic that we get to enjoy and laugh. And I'll be honest with you, I really do. And I mean this. It's one of the first things I always go to because it's quick. It's so funny. And it usually really is true. It rings home in a funny way.
You know what somebody once said to me? He said, your cartoons aren't about cars. I went, what? He said, they're about the people who own cars. They're about the people. I did a cartoon once, and he used it as an example. It's a guy running out of a house on fire, and he's carrying Model T parts, headlights, and a grill shell, and he's yelling to the arriving firemen, hurry up, my family's inside.
That's so true.
Yes.
Got to get those parts.
Yeah, it's about the people and how much they love what they'll do for their vehicles. How they'll extend themselves, and it's so true. I know people like that. Beautiful car, show car, lots of money in it. You go to their house, the garage is leaning, the house is falling into itself. You can see where their interests are.
Oh, yeah. Well, like one of the comics that you had talked about right before we went on air was the guy that goes into the parts store. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, it's a guy going into a parts store, and they're rolling out a red carpet, and guys are on their knees bowing down to him, the guys that work in the store. And the wife is saying to him, exactly how much are you spending in this store? And then, as I mentioned to you, it was laminated to their countertop when I went in to pick up these headlights that I had ordered for my 39 Ford. And the guy saw me looking at it. He says, funny, huh? And I said, yeah, I drew that. And he said, no, you didn't. Get out of here. I said, I drew that, really? So he didn't believe me, and I asked him to look at the name on the order, and he said, Trosley. And I said, what's the name on the cartoon? And he looked at it, and then he looked at me. He said, you did draw that. It was quite a thrill. I think that's when you see a cartoon you did taped up on the side of somebody's cash register, that was a good cartoon.
You've got a lot of them. Do you ever sit back and think, or have you ever, you might make a book. I don't know. Do you have a book, or do you ever think that you should make one?
A collection of them. I have a loose leaf folder that I keep them in, but no, I've never done that. We have a collection on our website, georgetrosley.com. of Crass and Bernie. There's part 1 and part 2, and also a how to draw book, which are all the how to draw pages that I did for cartoons over the years.
Yeah, I loved those guys when I was a kid. I would go to my brother was a few years older than me, and he always had Hot Rod magazine, and I would say he's an artist, and he would draw stuff, and he would bring home cartoons, and then obviously I think I got hooked on it from just seeing him, and it wasn't uncommon to have a few issues sitting there on the coffee table or wherever. And I probably didn't pay for them all the time, not meaning I stole them, just meaning that when I went to the supermarket, if I was there, with mom or whatnot, that was there was a little bit of Mad TV or Mad magazine was always a funny one, and then cartoons. Yeah. I loved cartoons, and it's about the people, not necessarily the car, and the car is just the medium to get us the laugh. What the people are doing.
It seems that way. When I was a kid, there was a 5 and 10 store, not near where I live, but my mother was a sewing person, with a sewing machine. And the back of this 5 and 10 was all sewing stuff. So she would go there once in a while, and I was with her one day. And in the front of the store was a magazine rack, and it was the first time I had ever seen the digest size of cartoons. Small size, like a Reader's Digest size.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was 35 cents, and I was freaking out. So when my mother finally came to the front of the store, I said, "You got to buy this. I'll give you the money. We got to buy this." I had a very active imagination as a kid, and if I saw early Mad magazines that were almost like horror magazines, I would have dreams. So she looked at it and she went, "Nope, it's too much like Mad magazine," and wouldn't buy it for me. Right? So we went home. And I said, "I'm going to go up to the baseball field." She said, "Okay." I had about 2 hours, and I got on my bike, and I figured out how to get to this place on my own. I was about 10 years old. I got halfway there, and then I was lost. And then I'd see a bus, and I thought, yeah, buses go that way. And I'd go where the bus followed. I finally found the place. I had popped coins out of my coin collection. Did you collect coins as a kid?
Oh, yeah.
The little blue folders?
Yeah.
I had popped a quarter and a dime out, rode my bike back down there, bought it, stuck it down my pants, and then when I finally got home, hid it outside like it was a Playboy. Okay? And as soon as I could, I went out and got it, and I still have it to this day. The
No
cover's
way.
all beat up. I still have it. And it just started something started that day when I saw that magazine. I have to do this. It wasn't like I really like to draw stuff. No, I have to draw stuff like this. Look at the way that wheel is all, ellipsed and smoking, and I just had to.
Oh, my
and
God.
then I started looking around for it and started gathering them up. And I still have all my small magazines. All my cartoons I ever had, I have.
You kept
It
the
was
original
the
one from being 10
Yes.
years old.
Yes. Yes.
That's got to be.
And
that's
I
priceless.
just turned 73, so that's quite a few years.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously I can do the math. That's 60 years is, that's crazy to think. And your wife is like, "Are you bringing all this box of, old vintage?" And you're like, "Yep. Yeah, that might be the next cartoon. You carrying the house, out of the fire with your cartoon magazines.
Yes.
And my family's in there. Get in there.
Yeah, go get them. Save them."
Oh my God, that's so cool. It's such a like a story to me of the world is right, that we got you and you got what you loved, and you gave up the corporate 9-to-5, the stressful job, the marketing job, and it just worked out.
Yeah, it did. I'm very, very fortunate. Like I said, I look back on my life and I got to do pretty much what I wanted to do and be fairly successful and have 2 kids and a nice house. It's great. It's really great.
How do you stay up to the times? Because when I read your stuff, especially the truck stuff, it's really period correct. I got a couple pulled here. I mean, I could just all day long, but I thought this one was wise, kind of beyond, I guess, your years. Is a guy's got now this is an older mag, but I found this one. I thought it was kind of cool. He looks like he's got a nice bagged and bodied S10, and of course the women are always so proportionate. I do like that about you. You make sure the women are very proportionate and the men are all the car guys. I was looking for Mr. Right, then I met Mr. Bagged and Dropped, and I just thought that was like, that's not something a 39 Ford guy is gonna be in tune with, but you're very in tune with the truck market era, and even from the styling and the styling cues that you create and draw. Hey guys, I've got Bobby from PSI Conversion on the phone, looking at LS LT based motor swaps. Bobby, why should we choose PSI Conversion?
Ronnie, our harnesses are made right here at home in the U.S. Our product lineup includes the early 90s Gen 2 LT motors, Gen 3, Gen 4 LS VotorTech motors, and Gen 5 LT and LT4 packages. We have transmissions ranging from automatic 4, 6, 8 speeds, and soon to be released our new 10-speed, in addition to all the manual options out there.
Wow, you guys cover everything. How do you deal with the intimidation factor when a customer is doing their first LS or LT swap? Great
question, Ronnie. But the thing is, there's nothing that we haven't seen here in the LS and LT world. If you grab almost any motor out of a junkyard, you want to Frankenstein it build together or even supercharge it. Leave it to our sales team to help guide you along the way to the products that you need for your restoration. We have over 10 years of experience in the market, a tech department that is available to help troubleshoot and diagnose any issues or questions that you have along the way while installing your PSI products. Couple that with a staff that is going to be standing by our products with pride, made right here in the U.S. to a GM quality standard. Our team is happy to get you wired up and fired up.
And don't forget, guys, use code C10TALK and you'll save 5% off your order. PSIconversion.com. PSIconversion.com. You want to save 5%? Use code C10TALK at checkout. Thanks, Bobby. Marquet has been in business for over 40 years. It all started in the original owner's garage. From humble beginnings of a couple parts in a garage to a 2-building manufacturing facility making over 6,000 parts, Marquet has grown to be one of the country's premier truck parts manufacturers. They not only design the products, but also design the tooling to build the products, guaranteeing quality control. They have made their original parts from the original trucks. Aluminum strips are double polished, creating a mirror finish, and crystal clear anodized. They use the highest quality, hand-selected show quality wood that will hold up over time. Why? Because it's kiln dried to precision moisture levels specifically for Marquet. They stock oak, pine, and mini exotics, guaranteeing extremely fast delivery. All parts are manufactured in-house in Oklahoma City, USA. They offer quality parts built by Americans for old American-made trucks. So when you're looking for body moldings, bed strips, bed wood, and so much more, think Marquet. That's mar-k.com. But you're very in tune with the truck market era, and even from the styling and the styling cues that you create and draw.
Yeah, a lot of that comes from magazines, but I'll go to a lot of small, what you might call creamy freeze shows, where it's just a gathering of people at a hamburger place, not a big parking lot. And as you walk around, you can't help but hear conversations and things people are saying about, look at that, look the way he dropped that front. He cut a coil? No, he cut two, You hear that kind of stuff. And that just stays in my head. In fact, that's a line. Did he cut a coil? No, he cut two. That could be a good caption if you just think of the funny drawing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, he cut two.
See how easy it is?
Oh, you make it easy. You make it easy. It's funny. I never even heard that. You said it's called a cream, and what is it?
We call them dairy. Like a Dairy Queen?
Yeah. Oh, a cream and queen or something?
Yeah, there's another one called Dairy Cream. It's just like a small, like a club will show up on a Friday night someplace, and then other people come to see what came.
The new thing
they're
now,
very small, impromptu shows.
Oh, it's perfect. The new thing now is they call them cars and coffee. That's the big thing is cars and coffee, or
Saturday morning, Sunday morning.
Yeah, so something like that. Guys, maybe going back to the graffiti time or your era, which has been the phenomenal times that you've had. Maybe like the Five and Dine style, where guys on a Friday or Saturday they meet up. But nonetheless, you're meeting people, and you must stay very inconspicuous. They probably don't know who's that guy. Why is he listening to our conversation?
Well, I usually go in my 39 Ford two-door sedan. It has a 350 Chevy and a posi rear. It's a nice street ride. But, no, I just think we used to, when we were younger, there would be a bunch of those. We would go to we hung out at the Geno's. And then we'd go to this place called Scotty's, which was another hamburger place. And then we'd go to an Arby's and see who was hanging there. And that's what we do for the evening, just cruise from one place to another and looking for girls and hoping our girlfriends would show up when we get back to Geno's.
Hopefully not both of your girlfriends, only one, or your wife and your girlfriend out at the same time. Yeah, you mentioned you're 39. Now, is this the same 39? Have you had the same car the whole time?
No. At one point, when I started on my own, I moved into this little apartment, and I just couldn't park on the street with my 39. And this guy had been bugging me. He owned a local little supermarket, and he wanted to buy it. He paid me $1,200 for it, and it was still a flathead. But I bought a Volkswagen, and I drove that to get my business going. And then as soon as I got married and bought a house, I bought a 40, and I had that for a few years, and then sold that. Some guy wanted it and offered me money. And when you're raising a family, you always need money. Somebody offers you $2,500, that buys a lot of stuff. So I sold that, and then about maybe 10 years ago, I got another 39, and that's the one I've been driving lately.
How do you, when you look back and you think you're 73 years old, you've seen, and I know you won't take this the wrong way, but I look at automotive as we're at like 100-year mark, you know, where it was horse and buggy, and now we have this autonomous stuff coming on, and you've been in the thick of it all. What is your thoughts of like growing up? When you grew up, you're in the hot rod era. You've seen the hot rod era, the muscle car era. I think we're in a really deep truck era now, and it's spanned such a. So how have you kind of stayed with that and describe, you know, maybe the differences of the people and the personality and the different things that you've seen?
Yeah, well, my son drives an Audi. And when he was getting into cars, he wasn't getting into older, used kind of cars. He was getting into the high-end stuff. And he's 30 now, and he drives an Audi A5. It's 2 years old, I think. But I think everything has, you know, his whole life changed. He has computer in his life. It's a whole different world for these people, so it reflects that in the cars that they buy and drive. They want all that stuff in their car. I just needed a radio, an AM radio in my car. And amplifiers, and you know what it's like, whoompa, whoompa, whoompa. Every generation has its stuff that it gets into, and that's what his buddies like, the high-end stuff. And you know, we went through that period where everybody wanted a Mercedes, and kids follow along with that, I guess.
Did you ever look back? Is there anything that you always wanted? I mean, because I feel like you got it. You got the magazine when you were 10. You got the dame. She's married to you for 45 years. You probably had a cool bike that you worked your ass off to get. You've got the 39. You had the 40. You sold the Bug. Did you ever have anything that you thought, man, I got to get a hold of one of those one day?
Oh, everything I see at a car show. I see a Deuce Roadster, and I want one of those. But you have to have money. You have to have money for insurance, upkeep. You got to pick and choose, especially if you have a family.
Yeah. How are the golden years? You know, your family's moved on, your kids, they've got their own thing. And how has that worked out? Has that been something that you and your bride have been able to really enjoy and travel more and travel more shows?
We actually have, and we're back to like where we used to be. Everything used to be almost like a business meeting when you're raising kids, and she has to be here Tuesday and he has to be there, and you have all that kind of stuff you got to work out. Now it's pretty much a little slower, a little easier. We have a small condo at the shore. We're there a lot whenever we can. Our daughter now lives at the Jersey Shore, so we see our grandchildren down there when we're there. But yeah, it's different, and it's yet it's still the same. It's still, she's one of the funniest people I know. She always goes somewhere with a joke that I wasn't even thinking of. And I'm in a happy time of my life. And like I said, I keep thinking about how really lucky I have been to have so much of what I wanted in my life be actually in my life. Not go to a car show and walk up and down rows going, oh, I wish I had that. Gee, oh man, look at that. No, I get to have something. I go down and wax my hood again in the garage.
Yeah.
Listening to classic rock.
Keeps you out of trouble.
Yes, it does. It does.
Do you have what's the challenging part? I mean, do you ever get like a writer's block, an artist block where you can't come up with something?
Always.
Really?
I don't. You if you call it writer's block, if you give it a name, then it exists. I'm just not being able to write something right now. I'll go down and get a couple cookies and some milk and come back up, and I'll talk myself into writing some stuff. Or I'll write some stuff not good, but I'm writing. You learn how to work with it. I've never allowed that writer block thing where I then take the whole day off because I can't write anything.
Mm-hmm.
No, you just keep pushing. You'll come up with something. Everything is like that. I don't care what you're trying to do. It won't be easy at first. And if you go, oh, geez, I have cut the lawn block, and you walk away. You know what that's going to look like. No, you do it. Halfway through it, you go, oh, I'm glad I did this. I'm almost done, too.
I think I've got take the trash out block. I've got work on the truck block. I've got a lot of blocks. And now that might be a new cartoon for you right there. I've got a lot of honeydew blocks, but I don't have any take the car out for a spin block.
It's a matter of what you allow in your life. I like to get things done. I'm up at 5 every day without an alarm. It's just the way I am. I get up at dawn with the birds. By 10 o'clock, I'm looking for some place to lay down, though.
Yeah, that's good. That's okay. You've earned it. I wonder, my next question or my next thought is, does the verbiage come before the art usually, or have you ever had some art come and then create, a funny joke or saying from that?
I don't know. Sometimes I'll get a line and I just know it's a good line. I'll hear somebody say it or something on TV. Often when I work, I have television on. And sometimes if you have, I don't really listen to soap operas, but I used to put that on once in a while just for lines that are so dramatic that they're fun to make fun of. But if I have just TV on, or they'll mention something on the news that's new. If you're doing contemporary cartoons, you got to do something with a face mask now. You just have to. And the things that everybody's experiencing, that's what makes a good joke, I think, or a good cartoon, if it mirrors something in your own life. I'm having trouble once in a while with forgetting what I went out for. And I saw a cartoon that laughed at, because I know why I laughed so hard. I laughed out loud at it. It was in New Yorker. And my wife is a very sarcastic person when she wants to be. And it's a guy coming in the front door, and obviously he has nothing in his hands, and he's an ex-military guy, like retired. And she's saying, how did Operation Remember to Bring Home Milk go? And we see he doesn't have the milk. And he's a military guy. And I laughed out loud at that because that happens to me all the time. Whatever I was doing, I forgot about it because I started thinking about something else. And I've always been a daydreamer. I think every year of grade school, I would be sitting there lost in a daydream and hearing my class laughing. And I'd think, oh, geez, what are they laughing at? What's funny? And as I came to, I would notice there was my teacher standing right next to me who had been talking to me. And I had just been sitting there, glazed over, not even hearing her. And when I got to be 6th or 7th grade, when girls mattered, I really stopped daydreaming because I was tired of being embarrassed like that. But I think that's another part of being a good cartoonist or an artist, that there's always something going on in the back of your head. You're always daydreaming a little bit, and then somebody says something, and that goes into your daydream. And funny, that becomes funny in a way because it's juxtaposed, or it didn't fit, or strangely enough, it did fit in an odd way. It's a weird thing, writing humor. It really is. I don't have any tricks or clues. You just have to sit down and try to do it. Blank piece of paper in front of you.
I just love how you nailed it in the sense that you're making it fit the audience that's reading it. And like you kind of alluded to, we call it CRS, can't remember shit. And you, the more people that are experiencing the situation that they're reading, the more it's gonna reflect home. They're gonna love it. They're gonna laugh. They're gonna, that makes me feel, even if it was about a kid daydreaming, because every kid, even though we don't read comic books like that when we're that young, probably because we can't read and/or we're daydreaming, and that makes people feel normal. It makes them feel kind of unified in that, I did the exact same thing, and some of the different things that you write and you create, especially from the truck world that I see. And that's what I think is so cool, that you've been able to transcend so many different genres of automotive, but yet at the core, we're all the same.
We are. Well, I mentioned that cartoon about how much have you been spending in this store, the auto parts store cartoon that was laminated to the countertop. They did that because they knew everybody would identify with it. Mm-hmm. Or they're saying $69.50. Everybody, that's the point where everybody's complaining or facing up to the fact of what something costs. So that was very appropriate for the people in the store to have that there. They would just point to it. Yeah. So it worked. It was a common thread in almost everybody who came into that auto parts store. How much are you spending? So that's why it works. When you can strike that chord with people, that's the success of it all.
Yeah,
I think.
Now we see a lot of what's called like memes, and we see the memes, and they're literally kind of like your cartoons, and they're flying all over social media, and they bring it home. There's the one that's kind of goes with what you're saying about the parts store is the guy that says, "I sure hope my wife doesn't sell my stuff for what I told her I paid." It's so
good.
true,
I'll steal that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Steal it. It's absolutely so true. And I wonder, you kind of brought up that you had, you watch or you see the New Yorker and some different. Do you find that you look at cartoons different? Do you enjoy cartoons for reference? Do you, as another artist, do you have an artist that you follow that you can't wait to see their cartoon?
Yeah, I do have a lot of different cartoons. I don't have any real favorites anymore, I guess. It used to be Mort Drucker and Mad who would do the movies, only because his drawings were so exquisite. He used to do all the beginning of the magazine. He recently passed away at 90-some years old.
Oh, wow.
But was drawing up until the end, I think. But yeah, I'll always see somebody new. I'm always looking for somebody's bringing something new to the table. And I can't think of anybody right now, but almost any drawing I see, I look at it. I know what it's like. You start with a picture in your head and then try to put it on paper, and then you go, no, what if I flipped it and it went the other? Oh, wait a minute. And you keep trying to alter it and change it. Hopefully you do. You don't go with the first thing you thought of, because often you'll come up with something much better if you just play with it a little bit. And I think it's that playing with it a little bit, kicking the ball around before you draw, that is one of the more important things, coming up with an idea. Often when I'm writing a story, like a Crass and Bernie story, I'll have the basic story, but I don't know all the little ins and outs. I will just start roughing it out on typing paper. And I'll come to spots where I go, no, what if he didn't know that yet? And I end up, if you saw my little 2-page or 3-page story, it would be cut apart from all these other pieces that I did. And the final thing would be I moved that and I added him saying something before that. And it's working that whole thing out, and then I'll show it to my wife and she'll make a couple changes that'll make it brilliant.
I just love that part, that she's, and that you trust her. Have you ever told her, nah, I don't think so?
Yes. In fact, often we argue about color, and she's usually right. But every once in a while, I will disagree with her because she doesn't have a little nuance about cars or something. I don't know, but rarely. Or if I do disagree with her, I'll take what she said and alter my idea.
Yeah.
Because I know where she's coming from, and she also is a reader and reads. She goes to the library with a shopping bag. Literally.
Yeah.
I'm serious. That many books. As many books as you can take out, that's how many she's up to. So she always has that novel thing in her head. What makes a good story? She'll say something like, what if Bernie wasn't there? He was at a car show and Crass bought that other car home and he didn't know it. She'll change that one knows and one doesn't, changes the whole story, makes a whole different ending. Great, and I'll run off to my studio wide-eyed and redo the story. But rarely do they just come out and write onto the paper. Usually that thing I talked about cutting it up and putting that on page 2 and moving that, and now we need something there. That you see people storyboard on TV for cartoons, animated cartoons, and even movies. And that way you get to get the feel for it, where you might come up with something like, what if he didn't know that yet? He doesn't have to know that yet. And then he would look at this and think, it's changing it as many times as you can until you get something you're really satisfied with. And then I've learned over the years, when I'm finally inking in that Crass and Bernie, if there was a weak story or something I didn't think was that funny, it's like pushing it all day long. If it's something that I think is hilarious and I really like the way it worked out, I sing my way through it with my pen. I'm loving it. This is so funny. This is so good. And I'm not going to tell anybody she thought up the ending.
Even better.
Yes.
Take us through the journey of creating like a Crass and Bernie that you get to do more explaining. You get to kind of feed us a little bit. Whereas when you do your comic for like street trucks, it's one page and it's usually just one sentence. Is that harder or is that easier? Does it come easier?
Well, the one-panel cartoon, you really have to hit somebody over the head with it. You don't want them to. I think I read somewhere that people look at a cartoon for 3 to 5 seconds. If they don't get it, they turn the page. And I've caught myself like that, especially with New Yorker cartoons. I don't get that French reference. I don't know what that is, So you have to get it quickly. With a story, it's a whole different thing. The telling of the story can be as fun as the smash ending. Sometimes the ending is a letdown because it was so much fun getting there. And I always try to make, even if I have a really good ending for the story, I just don't want to lead up to that. I want to wander a little bit and have a left-hand turn you didn't see coming so that you didn't expect it so much. And I find when I read other people's stories in cartoons, I see that. I like that they led me astray a little bit before they hit me over the head with it. It's more of a fun journey. Think about watching an old Twilight Zone. The whole thing of it was you did not know how this was going to twist in the end. They were great. I grew up with them. My brother and I, every Friday night, 9 o'clock, Twilight Zone. Mr. Rod Serling. I love that show. And when you watch a bunch of that stuff or you read a bunch of this stuff and get those plots and little twists and turns in your head, it becomes almost second nature when you're writing a story that you think, I know, I want one of those little twists you didn't see coming. What wouldn't you have seen? How could I back this up and change it a little bit so you wouldn't know so easily? They're the things I liked when I watched them as a kid, and and even when I read cartoons as a kid, I wanted to be one of those guys that you love their story. Like I think, man, I love that guy's stuff, man. I would admire them. I wanted to be that guy, even though I had no idea what he looked like or where he lived, or, anything about him. I wanted to be him. Stuff like that.
I think it's so cool to hear that. And I watched a little bit of Twilight. It's kind of, I guess, pre or post for me and my generation, but
yeah.
The Family Circus, for example, that's going to be a common one. Everybody's going to know. That's kind of just cute. You get in, you get out, you kind of get a chuckle. But what you're saying is, what I think makes people come back for more is when the twist, the left turn, it makes you challenge and think a scotch, and that's the fun part. That gives you the little tingle where you're like, oh, yeah. I get it. And and that's real shit. Okay, I got it. And so that keeps you coming back for more. That kind of gives that just that little bit of oh, I figured it out, or oh, I get that. That's a little bit deeper or in depth than just the flash.
And sometimes it's even fun as you're getting to the end of a story. If you start to go down sort of a sliding board where you know where this is going and you can't wait to get there. Even if you get an inkling of where it's going, you want to turn the page and see it anyway. Yeah, the comic book pages are fun to do because of that. It's like a little TV show, and you do have that turning. I always try to, when you turn the page or go to the top of the next page, you'd start afresh. It wouldn't be dragging on. It would be a little snap each time. And it's the same thing with movies and TV. If it's too much dialogue, you start thinking of something else. You daydream. But I'm happy to have some of my stories come out that decent. Not all of them, but some of them did. And when I see them today, I enjoy it. I think, man, I like that story. I remember inking it. I loved inking it, like I was saying. It's an enjoyable thing to do, especially if you know that it's going to go in a magazine and some kid's going to read it and say, hey, I love that. That's a great story.
Well, and you bring up a great point. You've probably influenced a lot of guys that you'll never know about that just like you were influenced by Pete and everything else, and now you have now done that same thing, and there's somebody out there who's drawing, who went to art school because they would, grow up and they would read cartoons or in the back of a magazine, a Troz, comic.
Yeah, that's a nice feeling. That's a nice feeling.
I've got them spread out all over and I'm kind of looking at them. I think you do such a great job. One of the things that especially truck guys or car guys, automotive guys, is you're pretty much an automotive guy from the get-go. So when you get in a relationship, your wife or spouse or whatever it is, your partner is going to, you kind of have to, kind of a quote my friend from work gave me one time is, start the way you want to finish. And it's such a deep meaning, but what it's saying is, hey, if you're a car guy and you meet your wife, there's going to, your job is to take care of your family, just like you've, expressed throughout your life, but you're still been a car guy the whole time. So she knows what she's getting into. I feel like you do such a great job, and that's just endless amounts of comic book stuff for you, or comic strip stuff for you, because this one right here, the guy's buying a C10. You've got it laid out. He's got a 67 C10. It looks like it's got a blower. And he's like, she'll be so surprised. My girlfriend's expecting a diamond engagement ring. And it's like so perfect because it's just so wrong, but that's what we do. And then the poor woman is just like, yep, that's what he does. I still love him, and 20 years later, 40 years later.
Yeah, with an idea like that, you picture after the cartoon, him giving it to her, she going, what?
Well,
he's getting it for himself. Is what he's doing.
Yeah, that's the part that's so great is that the way you've created that is you've left that up to the imagination. Now, whether or not that became his girlfriend again, or she became his wife, or she became his ex-girlfriend, nonetheless, but that kind of, you leave that up to the imagination.
Yeah, and they do get to know you, like you're saying. There was one on a Friday night, I blew up my transmission. The street racing, of course, and I had the stuff to rebuild it. But if you've ever the pre-war Fords, you have to pull the whole rear end and torque tube out. The drive shaft comes out with the rear end, and it's these little the pressure plate and the clutch, and there's these things that have to line up. And she actually came over. I had rebuilt the transmission. I laid underneath, and the piece of the floor is out. She put the transmission on my chest. I held it. And she lined those grooves up. Transmission went right in. She put the top bolts in and left. And I put the rest of the car back together, got a shower, and at 8 o'clock I was picking her up for a date.
That should be the test. That's the test right there. I
think that's the night I knew.
Yeah, you knew. That's like, well, my girls now, I have two girls, and for my generation, the kids, that's how we knew. I used to tell my girls are, one's almost 15 and then 13. And if we take one of the old trucks, I said, well, I'm going to open the door for you. But that's how you knew, is if, your girl would reach over and, unlock the truck for you. And
what movie is that from? He tells him that. Somebody gives him advice. I forget.
Oh, well, that's just that's just how we lived. And I remember, that's kind of how, you knew, you're like, well, she's a good girl. She's a keeper here. She, but now these kids don't have that. And, and like you said, she helped you, she helped you work on for my wife, I've even said it, like, I think it was on our 20-year anniversary. Well, I've said it for 10 years minimum, but she has helped me. We joke about it now. She has helped me take truck bench seats in and out over 100 times. And she knows where now my son's, he's obviously old enough. In the last, let's just say 6 years, my son has become my bench seat walker outer, but she was my go-to. She's helped me move so many seats in and out. And there's countless other things, from hoods to all these other little things. We're like, hey babe, can you help me? And she helps. She always has. And again, because she knew what she was getting into. I mean, because we started off the way we wanted to finish, but I've even told her, I'm like, happy 20th. Thank you for the countless seat, removals. And the non-car people just are like, what the hell does that mean? The guys that, don't know. So one of the other comics I like, you could almost string these together, was the guy, says, hey, she's going to be surprised about the non-engagement ring. But then you've got a guy where they're sitting in the bedroom. The furniture is all tool chests. And it says, I will never let you pick out bedroom furniture alone again. And they're sitting in a truck bed. Everything is just, and she's pissed off. And it's
they
almost
all have these skinny little drawers for socks and underwear and stuff. I love that one.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Well, it's funny because it's almost like a sequel of, kind of as it goes. Oh, yeah. It's so good. Here's another one that's funny, and I'll post these up, but This guy says he's got the truck in the parking lot, and he's visiting Dr. Phil. He's on the couch. I let my inner child out, just like you said, and he built a fabulous truck. I'm cured. It's just so true. It's just therapeutic. The automotive world that we live in.
Yeah, it really is.
What would you say is your thought? Like, I think it's just cool that you've been able to capture the truck guys. But when you look over so many, again, the genres of Crass and Bernie, they're the muscle car kind of guys. They're just crazy, some of those guys. Then you have the truck guys, you're writing for street trucks. And then you think about just your hot rod lineage, which is going to be, more you. And I don't know that they're, the different level of all the hot rod guys. Do they subscribe to cartoons? Do they get their magazine and do they go right to the cartoon section? I can only talk for, me and the truck community that we love it. What does it do, kind of your faith of automotive, just enthusiasm, that we're still kicking butt when it comes to what we love about these metal objects? Hey guys, I have Jim Flanders, Brothers Trucks on. Jim, what's the latest?
It's the same old thing over here. We're grinding away, selling truck parts, and really focusing on our YouTube channel.
The cool thing is, myself included, I'll check that channel out. It's a great customer service, a benefit to us. When we buy something, we can get in depth and know a little bit more and know the ins and outs, especially to watch it even before you go to install the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And we built a tech center in the back of the warehouse, so we literally bring in new products. We'll build them onto a truck or put them onto a truck, and we can see instantly how much work it's going to be, how easy it is. And we put that out to our YouTube channel so people, like you said, they'll be able to look at it and go, you know what, I can do that job in a day, or I can do that job in an hour. And it basically just completes a whole package of not just selling the product to a customer, but really backing them up when it comes to showing them how to do it and just making sure that they've got everything they need to get the truck back on the road or keep it on the road.
Like I said, I've watched it myself. I love it. Now, I heard you're rearranging some stuff over there. What's going on in the warehouse?
Yeah, we actually, this last year, we've been building a ton of inventory. And for a long time, we've always said, if you don't have it on the shelf, it's hard to sell it. People want to have it on the shelf. They want to know they can call and get it out the door that day. So, we're just trying to be more efficient. We're trying to have more inventory on hand. And, we've done a really good job at building inventory over the last 25 years. So I think that's what's putting us in the lead in this truck market for sure.
I totally agree. Brothers Trucks, you guys, for all your Chevy and GMC truck parts. And don't forget, they're putting new stuff on their YouTube channel all the time, so check it out. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, I've got Kathy White, Classic Performance Products, CPP on the line. Kathy, how's it going?
Hey, Ronnie, what's up?
What's up? What's new?
We've got a ton of things for the C10 community. First things first, our 2.5-inch Extreme X10 drop spindle. So we've upgraded the current modular spindle to modern technology. This new X10 spindle is a one-piece forged, but it utilizes strong, modern, bolt-in, internally sealed bearing hub assembly. So it's low maintenance. It doesn't move the wheels out, and you can use big brakes from us or any aftermarket big brakes out there in the market.
That's awesome. What else is new?
So we have actually gone back and redesigned our aluminum fuel tanks. As you know, our fuel tanks are the thickest, strongest, and largest capacity in the industry. But now you can actually use the same tank for either a carbureted or a fuel injection application. 63 to 72, it's 20 gallons, and for 73 and newer, 22-gallon capacity.
How about that coilover kit? You guys must be killing it with that thing.
That is such a great kit. It's fully bolt-on. It's easy to install. Strongest tubular arms in the market, available with either upper and lower or just the lowers or just a coilover kit by themselves. All the mounting brackets that you need, and it also comes with dual adjustable coilover shocks. So it's really responsive. It's up to you however you want to tune the compression or the rebound. It's perfect if you're just cruising on the streets, and it's proven on the track.
Well, that's what we like. So if you need spindles, the new X10, fuel tanks, coilovers, they've got it. Classic Performance Products, CPP. And don't forget, use code C10TALK, C10TALK at checkout and save 10%. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Ronnie.
We're still kicking butt when it comes to what we love about these metal objects.
Yeah, and when you think about the rising gas prices and what cars cost these days, and how scarce a 55 Chevy really is if you're into that, how hard it is to find when you're going to pay 20, 30,000 for it. It's going to be something you get rather than a boat. You know, it's going to be one of those kind of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. It must really be part of America, this car thing, and other countries as well. I shouldn't just say America. But we love our cars. We love something different. There's a guy that goes by my house here. It's one of those 2 wheels in the front, 1 wheel in the back kind of thing. And he's got a radio that sounds like a parade. I mean, this guy wants to be seen on the street. And I think we always had a little bit of that.
I forget what they call those. A slingshot, I think, is what it's called. It might be a slingshot.
Yes, I think that is. Yeah.
Yeah, those are crazy. You look at that and you're like, what the hell? But if you think about it, my first thought is that, you know, it's not the safest thing, but a 32 Ford Coupe is not the safest thing either. So no. It's almost like a backwards Ford Coupe if you think about it. But yeah, it's pretty crazy and we're spoiled because now, you know, you've been entrenched in this scene for so long, but you think about the countries like, again, Saudi, for example, the Australian communities, they really have to go through a lot of red tape to even get a vehicle on the road that's been modified or after so many years. We're so spoiled. Some of the stuff I see on the road, I'm like, that has no business being on the road, but people drive it.
But a lot of states now have street rod and hot rod tags, so you know you don't have to go through the regular inspections and stuff. We really accommodate our car people in this country, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that comes back to thankfully SEMA's helped out with a lot of that because the aftermarket, you know, those aftermarket guys, they got well, and let's go to that. Your stuff is all over. Your stuff is on the Holly website. You know, I was talking to Kevin Aguilar. He was saying how you did like some Christmas cards, or you did a poster or a thing when it was their 15 year, and I think he said it was he was in it. Courtney Holloway was in it. Stillwell was in it. I think he even said Brian McCormick.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're all in like the hot tub, and George drew it for us, and that became like our Christmas card.
Yes, I remember the hot tub. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He told me he was going to get me one because I told him I was going to interview, and I mean it's just cool to think how many people are. You know, the touchability of what you're doing and creating, and it's all from these cars. Yeah,
and it often fascinates me that I'm just a guy in a little town sitting in a room in my house, drawing this stuff, and it gets published and it goes all around the world. What? Wow! I'll get letters from people in Australia, as you mentioned. We do a lot of car portraits and truck portraits through our website. All around the world. Some of the shipping that these people pay for this stuff, I go, I'm not worth that. Jeez. But cars, hot rods, trucks, everybody loves them all around the world.
That might be something that I'm going to try to get you to introduce you to more, as these memes, because they're so funny. And I feel like with your creativity and obviously your wife's, but you said something that you're not worth that. And it made me think of a meme. And the meme was, and I'll butcher this, so just bear with me here, but it was something to the effect that the mechanic said, if it takes me a half hour to install, your flux capacitor, you're not paying for the half hour. You're paying for the 10 years it took me to learn how to do it in a half hour. And I loved that. I just love that, because people just think, well, hell, you just did that in a half hour. And it's like, well, it took me 5 years to learn how to do it. It took me 2 years to buy the expensive tool that cost, and it goes kind of through all that, And as a firefighter, one thing that I have been told myself, and I've told other people, is it's normally this much for you, but if you're going to stay here and watch me, then it's 125%. Or we tell them, because some firemen are so cheap, or police officers, public safety, they're like, well, can I get a deal? And you're like, yeah, your deal is 110%. Get the hell out of here, type deal, where you freaking guys are trying to Jew them down or something, and you're like, listen, just pay it the hell I need to be paid.
Yeah. I've heard people. I have a good friend who's main mechanic in a local repair shop, and this woman the other day said, "How long is this going to take? I want to know when to come back." Well, he didn't know. He doesn't know what's the matter with it yet, and he has to give her, give me a couple hours. Call me and I'll tell you. People expect mechanics just to know exactly, fix it, plug it in, screw that in, and I'm done. How much? It's not that easy.
So you mentioned you will, if somebody wants their vehicle drawn, you will draw that for them?
Yeah, we have samples of stuff I've done like that on our website.
Okay.
And you can even have your car on a cartoons cover if you want.
Yeah, I remember that. That was actually, I think I remember seeing that in cartoons back as a kid, like that you could get your own version and, explain that, how you were a fan and then you became, part of the staff for cartoons. And how long have you been working and or creating and drawing for cartoons?
Well, I started in 73, and I think in 91 they ceased publication of cartoons. And then the cartoons logo about 5 years ago went up for sale. Peterson became McMullen and Yee. McMullen and Yee became another company, and they just stopped paying for that logo. And when it went up for sale, this guy in Canada, Mark Mathot, bought it and brought back Cartoons Magazine. So I think we're on issue 23 now, and I'm doing a lot of stuff for him, and he's talking about a deal with Netflix to bring cartoons visually animated. I would love that, but we'll see what happens with that. It sounds like
you're working through that, but how would that walk us through how you see that working out? Like it would be people would read it off or it would be a cartoon. It would be like Scooby-Doo on Netflix.
Yes, I think that's what he's trying to he would call it the Cartoons Hour or something like that. So it would be all kinds of that genre stuff. But if it works as a magazine, it should work as a half an hour TV show, I would think, or an hour, depending. Animation is very expensive. So I don't know how you would handle the costs of all of that. But he's trying to do that, and if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't be back.
Yeah.
He's put a lot of effort and money into it. And like I said, I didn't think we'd get past issue 12, 10. He's at 23 or 24 now. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad he did that.
What do you think about it wasn't meant to be this way, but it is going to end up being Kevin Aguilar, then you, and then I've got a new magazine that's going to be coming out. But what do you think about print media, really? And, without print media, both cartoons and street trucks, Hot Rod magazine, everything else, we might not really know quite to the extent of who George Trosley is.
I think it's the times people read things on their phone now, not even on a computer screen or a laptop. Things are going that way. I still prefer a magazine. I like to carry it around with me. I have my studio is bookcases after bookcases with my magazine collection. My wife says up here it's me and my silverfish. So I still prefer magazines, although the new way is to read it online.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you manage your social media, or do you have somebody that helps you with that?
My wife.
There she goes again.
She's real smart, and she's computer savvy, and I'm really bad at it because anytime I've sat down to try to do something, she's behind me going, "Do this, no, get up, just get up, go away, get up," because I'm just too slow.
Yeah.
And she's so good with it, so she handles all that end of things, and I do all the drawings.
When you look back, you think about you created, cartoon characters, Crass and Bernie. You've come up with the comics that you've created for street trucks and the truck world. When you look back, what does that do for you? What does that make you think and feel that you've created such an identity within automotive and or comic book?
Wow. Say that again.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
No, I really don't think about it like that unless somebody comes up to me and said, "You're the guy that draws Crass and Bernie," and they talk to me. I think, "Wow, how about that?" You sit in a room by yourself doing these drawings. You never hear the laughter. You hope you know where it's going to go, but you're not like a comic that goes out on stage and can tell which jokes worked and which ones didn't right away. It gets printed and goes out, and some guy in Albuquerque laughs at it. I don't hear him. So it's a strange thing to do that and not be able to, like I said, like a comic can see what works and what doesn't, and the next time he alters his routine, it's too late. It's already printed. So it's been a strange thing to do something and have it be so popular, and I'm really thrilled about that. The the initial when I first Dennis Ellison asked me to come up with some characters. My brother and I used to build homemade go-karts, and we put a go-kart motor on the back of a little tricycle once, direct chain drive to the rear wheel. You pushed it and jumped on it. You pushed it and kick-started. It was direct drive, and hopped on it. And we used to crash, break ourselves. Our friends called my brother and I Crash and Burn. And when he asked me if I wanted to come up with a couple of characters, I called them Crash and Burn and based them on my brother and I. And he said, we can't call them Crash and Burn. So he changed them to Crass and Bernie. And I always thought Bernie was Crass and Crass was Bernie. He and I argued over which was which.
Yeah.
And to this day, in my rough story, I'll get them wrong because I always think of them as their names being opposite. But and my wife will always say, you got the name wrong there. Don't forget to change that name. But it was a thrill to even mimic. My brother and I were only a year apart, and what I didn't think of, he did. And that's a lot of what Crass and Bernie are. They finish each other's sentences. And I think I'm thrilled about being able to reflect my earlier life in those cartoons. Nobody knows that, but somebody will say they seem so real. It's because we were, you know. And I'm just, what would we do? What would we do back? What would my brother have said to me if I had done this? And often it'll start to write itself, and then you'll add some jokes and things. But I thank Crash and Burn for their activities back then.
Is he, involved? Is he still a car guy, or what's that relationship like?
Well, unfortunately, he died a few years ago, but he was always he moved to St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and lived there and ran a construction company for a big company and had a Jeep that he used to jump off of the side of the mountain with. One of those kind of crazy guys.
Now I know. I think I know why you get the character wrong or mixed up every time. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I actually kind of thought about that before I asked him. Like, oh, I hope he's still with us. But unfortunately, like you said, so I apologize for that, or sorry for your loss.
That's okay. That's okay. We're all getting older, and I've sort of gotten used to it. He still talks to me.
Yeah.
Being he moved away, he's still in my head, even though he was still alive. I would say, what would Harold do? It was his name, Harold, and I used to call him Har. Anyway, he often in my head would answer. I know what he would have done.
Yeah.
He would have done this.
Well, you get to bring him back, and he gets to be alive in the comic,
yes,
which has got to be fun and probably put a little smile on your face because you're like, well, this is exactly what that son of a bitch would have done.
Yeah. Back in the 60s, AMT model cars were just beginning, and he and I were ripe for that. And I used to take the headlights from one car and using plastic wood, mold the headlights, French headlights, chop a top, and use plastic wood to mold everything together. And he, with little files, emery paper, he would sand them. And there's this stuff for balsa wood literally called dope. It comes in a jar. It looks like a jar of snot. And you paint it on the balsa wood and sand it and paint another coat and paint another coat, sanding between coats. And it makes them smooth and gets rid of all the pores of balsa wood for building balsa wood and airplanes and stuff. But we used to use that on the fine pores of the plastic wood because it would have little pores in it. When you painted it, you'd see them. And he would emery file these things and fine sandpaper. We would win every model contest in the area, and eventually they wouldn't even let us enter. But we were getting to be late, 13, 14, we were saving for cars, and then we were starting to get cars. So we didn't care that we couldn't enter the model contests anymore. But we would just win all of them, and mostly it was because of his unbelievable talent with sandpaper and making the stuff I did look really good.
His detail, it's so cool that he was your yin to your yang, and it sounds like your wife is part of that too. It makes a great team. And again, to reflect back on that, to think that you and your brother are encapsulated in the cartoon, your wife helps you, and the thing that I guess to hear kind of you say, hey, the guy in Albuquerque doesn't really get to, I don't know if he laughs. I think he's laughing because you keep coming back for more. If he wasn't laughing and it was bad,
That's true.
then they wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that's something that maybe and I'm not going to, be Mr. Social Media on you, but that's what's cool about social media. And I've shared some of your stuff on my social media, and it does really well. And it's cool to see the comments, because you get the comments where they're like, this is hilarious. This is so true. This, rings home. And that's one thing that social media, or before social media, you didn't really get that interaction. And now you do. And you get you get to know from what the guy's thinking in Albuquerque.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
And I do get email once in a while from somebody like that, and they'll mention some little piece of something I did that he saw that, he noticed that. That's great. I used to, when I do cars on jack stands, I've done this, and I've seen it in other people's garages where they lose the pin that holds the jack stand up in the little hole, and they stick a Phillips screwdriver in there. I have seen that, and I do that in my drawings. And somebody saw that and wrote me a letter about it. That he says, my buddy does that all the time. Why did you do that? Had you been to his garage? Well, he's not the only one who's thought of that.
Yeah, car guys, man.
Yes.
It starts early. Somebody like yourself who was into the early hot rod stuff, it gets passed on to the muscle car guys, and then the muscle car guys gets passed on to the minis, and the minis go into the C10s, and so that that stuff. It's not reinventing the wheel every time. That stuff's been around a long time.
Yeah, it has. I used to love to go into somebody's garage where I had never been and just look around at the stuff they have jammed in there, hung from the fenders hanging from the ceiling. It's incredible, car guys' garages. There actually is a magazine called Garage Magazine, I think, but they're usually the kind of guy that just spent $1.5 million on his garage.
Yeah, a little bit higher end
to house his Porsche collection. Yes. I like the kind the guys did from themselves. Like they cut a door down the middle to make 2 shells. The door was left in the garage from the previous owner.
I think you've even mentioned, the humble beginnings of who you are, and that is going to speak to so many, your audience, really. If you think about the majority of who's reading your art and laughing at it, it's the guy that's going to cut the door down the middle. It's not the Porsche guy who's, got the $150,000 garage set up. It's the guy who's putting the screwdriver in the jack.
Yeah, it is.
I think this one might blow you away a little bit. I look at signatures, and your signature from an automotive is, I guess it's see what you think. Foose is definitely in my genre of a signature that you're not going to mistake. And you even talked about, people want to grow up to be Mickey Mantle. That's a signature you're not going to, mistake as well. But your signature, did you work on that? Because it's I can spot that a mile away.
Well, thank you. That's great. Originally, my T from back in my Roth days when I was like in my teens was a dagger with that part that keeps your hand from going onto the blade as the cross on the T.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to sign my name with a dagger, Trosley. So it just altered. I changed the dagger to a regular small T. But at one point, the signature that is on my stationery and stuff, I was just going to do a signature for my stationery. And it just said Trosley and then my phone number and stuff. And I spent almost a whole Saturday morning trying to make the perfect Trosley signature. And I ended up cutting the T from this one and the R from that one and the S from this one, pasting it together and running to a copy place to copy it and see what it looked like. But yeah, you sign it so many times, you do work on it. You have one you like and you think, do the rest of them like that. I like the S in that one. Every artist figures out some way to sign his name.
Not only is the uniqueness in the way you have it, but just that to me, it's so recognized. Like I know when I see that's cartoons, that's Street Truck's, cartoonist, that reflects to me, that's kind of a famous deal. It's got to feel pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That was the idea, I guess.
Yeah, you did it. And the dot, or the extension of the top of the T, I assume you probably, it's funny how you look back and you're like, how long I agonized on that damn thing, whether or not to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see you doing like, should I put the dot or no dot? Babe, what to do with the dot? I don't care, George. Just put the dot in there.
Yes. Be done with it. Move on.
You're driving me crazy. Did you get
It'll
the
work
milk?
out.
It'll all work out. That's what's so funny is you could sweat over it for a whole weekend, and then 10 years later you're like, this is for sure speaks home to me. 10 years later you're like, didn't really matter. My wife's like, I told you it didn't matter. You just had to freaking make a big, spend 48 hours screwing around with that dot on top of the T.
Yes. That's so true. That's so true.
Well, I just again, we're going to take you home, take you out. The last one that I have here that I thought was just probably a good one to kind of wrap it up. But he's got it looks like a first series Chevy truck, 49 to 54, advanced design. And St. Peter's getting ready to let this car guy in the gates. And he says, great, you fixed that hinge on the gates. I'm explaining it a little bit more on the gate. Okay, then it's a deal. You can bring your truck in with you. So that was a good one. The guy said, I'll fix the gate if you let me bring my truck into
mechanical abilities you'll use. Yes.
Yeah. That's good, man. That's great.
Thank you.
So for my audience, you can get on George Trosley, TROSLEY.com, common spelling on George, and you can have all the fun you want there. Instagram is, I believe, George Trosley as well, correct?
I guess, yes.
Yes. Let me look at it real quick, because your wife runs that. So let's see here. I've definitely tagged you in a few things when I do post it, and it's always it's fun. It's fun to post those up and get a little bit of the reaction. Yep, there it is. So it's just the same thing. George Trosley.
Yes.
There's no art. There's no nothing. Now that I just pulled this up, how funny is this? Just because of the cartoon days, your self-image, your self-portrait is. I've always been a fan of that too. So that's a cool one because that's up here on your Instagram here. But that's a fun one too to see that.
Great.
Okay, I think you got here. Oh well, here you go. Right here, you got. Two Georges, both legends. George Barris, that's a good one.
Yeah, what a great guy.
Yeah, and to think, like you said, you were such a fan, and then you became friends, and the rest is history.
Yeah. George Barris was this big deal in the magazine, with all his customs, and then to actually meet him and get to know him, he's a great guy. Really a nice guy.
You do a good job of the seasonal stuff too. So I'm going to give her a hard time. She's kicking butt around Christmas, and then she's taking a break here. So we're going to give her a hard time. You tell her. Don't tell her I said anything. But okay. So George Trosley, you can get right there. You can check it out. Please follow him. Give him a follow. And if you want to support his pension, get online and maybe get a cartoon of your truck. And it's Buy Cartoons magazine. Any other way that you can think of that we can get a hold of anything and help you out?
Not really. Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Go to our website.
Thanks for everything that you've done for the automotive community, George. Thanks for taking your time to be on C10 Talk, and we hope you're staying safe out there. Tell your beautiful wife we said thank you for your time, and we'll be in touch.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
All right. Bye-bye.
That's all, folks.